Hola, welcome. This is Dino Delano. All right. Did you know that fear is the greatest inhibitor and that most of the fears that we experience are not only illusionary, but also have been conditioned into us? Now, what does that mean? Very simple. Is that because most of the fears that we have are actually downloads from society, from religion, from government, parental upbringing, and many things of the like, it means that it is changeable. That not only can it be changed, but it can be transformed into a very positive expression. Think about how should I say, powerful fear is, and that you to take that power and now turn it into something positive. Wow! Now we have something that can really carry us, move us to those actions that we literally want to have in our lives and create. Okay. There is what? Fear of relationships, there is fear of money, there is fear of success, there is fear of going broke, there is fear of death, there is fear of sin, and it goes on and on and on. Fear of your enemies, fear of Russia, fear of Saddam Hussein, and on it goes. So today, not only are we going to understand fear in depth, but right here on this video, we were going to go into means and methods that will actually help you clear it from your life, to help you to literally transform it so that this power that has been possibly an inhibitor in your life can now become something extremely positive. We live in a fear-driven society. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because most of you probably already realize it. Fear-driven in the sense, and this was said by a Catholic priest just here recently, and he put a video up on YouTube, and he said it very simply, that sin, hell, so on, was an invention of religion in order to control people. Wow! That's very powerful. In other words, he came right out and said it. But even though he has said it, does that clear it from the consciousness of people? Indeed, no, it does not. Because for those of us who have learned that type of thinking, it is very emotional based, often taught since childhood. So most of the emotions and feelings are what? They're unconscious, and they are triggered automatically. When we live in a fear-based society, we become reactive and defensive. Well, very simple again. The smoking gun, weapons of mass destruction, and what? It was all a lie, and yet most people what? Responded to it. Most people supported the war. Most people were angry towards Saddam Hussein, and he was the devil, and he was the bad guy. In fact, he had no power at all to really do any damage whatsoever to the United States in any way. The sad part, of course, is that we have displaced well over 1 million Iraqis and killed numerous amounts of innocent human beings in the process. All out of what? Illusionary fears. But that was used. And because governments understand that these kinds of things can be used to motivate people, to get them to move into actions that they want to take, they use it. So do religions. Oftentimes parents taught us from a fear-based place, but in all respect, a lot of times they thought that was the way to do things. Fear also causes us to become what? Repetitious. Sometimes we hang out in a job that we hate or a relationship that isn't working because we're afraid to what? Make a move, afraid to do something different. Fear seeks blame rather than solutions. Think about it in this way again, and this was something that I mentioned in some of my other videos. And I remember during the healthcare thing that was, all the meetings that were going on all over the country, and people were screaming, this is communism, this is socialism. And guaranteed, less than 1% of those people knew anything about communism or socialism. They were what? reacting. And when we react, as such, and all of us do, by the way, for the most part, I've never met anybody that was totally clear yet. If I ever do, I'll let you know. But anyway, when we react, we are not in a process of thinking. We're not in a process of clarity of mind and action. In other words, it literally gets in the way of our what? Of intelligent action. Releasing fear leads to emotional freedom. What is emotional freedom? Emotional freedom is that place where we have choice. Maybe you're dating 2 or 3 different people, right? And in the process, you're maybe struggling a little bit. Should I marry Jake or be with Joe, or would Sally be the best person for me to be with, and so forth. When we are conditioned that we're supposed to marry a particular kind of person, with a particular religion, a person with a particular racial background, so on, that means that our emotions are what? Are tied up. We cannot see clearly in that sense. When we release those kinds of emotions, when we release the fear-based ways of thinking, acting, reacting, we can begin to perceive much more clearly and make much more intelligent choices. Think about how many people are homophobic. They're afraid of something that 2 people, or whoever, do in the privacy of their own home, in their own life. Because they have what? They have been conditioned that it's wrong. They have been conditioned that it is against the laws of God and all of these kinds of beliefs. But those beliefs are what? Emotional. Emotional meaning that it puts energy in motion. And when it puts energy in motion, oftentimes most times actually, there is very little process of clear thinking or that ability to be emotionally free and think for oneself. Think of it this way. When we are responding in that sense to beliefs and conditionings that have been downloaded into us, that is not thinking at all. That is simply robot-like thinking. And all of us, as I say, have some of that. But when we release that, we begin to expand our awareness. Now we can become friends with somebody who is gay or homosexual. Now we can begin to relate to the Iraqi or the person from Iran or the person from Russia. We no longer have all of these fear-based ideas that stop us from relating and understanding other human beings. In other words, it opens up what? Collaboration. It opens up relationship. It opens up understanding. Become a participant in your evolution. When you transform these fears that have been controlling us as a nation, as a society, as a world, you become part of the solution. You become part of your own evolvement in life. That leads to enlightenment. EFT, emotional freedom. We are going to use some processes which is called EFT in order to help you liberate it, and we're going to do it right here, right now. EFT, which is a great process, and it's not the only one, by the way, and I'm going to share some others with you, but this one we're going to use right here on the video. I'm going to show you how to do this so that literally you can free yourself and liberate yourself. Using this process will enhance your life in more ways than you can imagine. For people, for instance, who have had a lot of guilt about sex, it will help you enjoy that sexual experience. It is supportive of your immune system, literally, and I don't mean that figuratively, supportive in your immune system in the sense that you begin to become less stressful. When you are less stressful, you become a healthier person, not only a more clearly thinking person, because stress leads to what? Heart disease. Stress leads to, let me put it this way, overreactive fear, very controlled fear in that sense, oftentimes leads to Arthritis. Think about it. Just use your imagination for a moment. When a person is in a state of fear and they can't respond, what do? They do this. They freeze up. When we release that, now the person becomes more mobile. They become more flexible. They become more movable in their life. And literally, I have seen people heal their arthritis. So releasing it also liberates you. And literally, you will feel liberated. You will feel free to begin to act and take the actions that you want to take in life. It expands. And it expands us into something very simple called emotional intelligence. There is a very positive nature of fear. Positive fear is instinctual, natural, and healthy. Now, you're not going to hear much of that from a lot of the New Agers who say, that fear is the absence of love and fear needs to be gotten rid of. And so that's all nonsense. In fact, it's what I consider stupid thinking. Fear is a natural process that we are born with. It was made to what? Help us survive. It was made to help us fight or flight if that became necessary. I was a runner for many years, and a lot of times I'd be running down a city street, and I remember a particular instance. I'm running down the street, and this big dog, it was a big dog, came running out of this yard and growled and began to rear up, and I reared right back up at him and screamed at him. It was all a natural, instantaneous response on my part. Guess what? That dog turned and got the hell right out of there. I was a hell of a lot bigger than him. He knows that. But you see, I did the right move at the right time. Fear does that for us when it is natural, instinctual, and it is a part of a healthy organism. Fear can also smell a rat. What do I mean by that? It's very intuitive. A lot of times somebody is trying to sell you something, or they're trying to get you to do something, and sure enough, something don't smell right. Something don't feel right about what's going on. Some of you might have felt that when they were selling weapons of mass destruction, as an example. I certainly did. I thought, man, there is something wrong with this whole process. And there's a lot of that still going on, by the way. So if you pay attention to your fear, not act like it is a negative thing within you, you will find that it is a tremendous area of healthy response. If you're in the jungle, I hike a lot in the desert, and I'm constantly aware that there are rattlesnakes. I've run into them now and then. I'm not necessarily what you'd call freaked out by them or super fearful of them, but I do have a healthy respect, and I allow that nature within myself to keep me what? A little more aware, so that I am aware of where these kinds of things can be. That same awareness works in a very positive way for the person who is doing investing, because a lot of times that person will get intuitions, they'll get feelings of the right way or the wrong way to go. So don't negate fear. Don't make it a bad thing within you. What we are going to transform are those fears that have become illusionary in our life. Those fears that control us when in fact there's really nothing to be afraid of. Just like weapons of mass destruction. Or when I was a kid growing up, it was what? Communism and all of that kind of thing. And really, there was nothing at that time to be afraid of. Okay. Let's move on and let's get right into it here. EFT is a great process in order to help you transform these fears. And I'm going to go through a process right here with you right now. All right? Now, I want you, though, to understand that you need to be creative with this. In other words, don't follow what I'm doing exactly. The words that I'm using are my words. The words possibly maybe relate to something that I used at one time in order to clear up some of my own fears. So you need to bring this into respect with what is ever going on with you. We're going to start off with tapping on the karate chop. Understand what EFT is. EFT simply uses acupuncture points, acupressure points to help the energy begin to flow again. Because what conditioning does to us is it locks up the energetic process within us. Think of the energetic process in this very simple way. Imagine that your nervous system is the wiring in a house and electricity flows through. Well, in this particular wiring, what flows through? Life energy. When we have conditionings, as the nature of what we've been talking about here, it begins to block the flow of energy. By tapping on these acupressure points and focusing in a particular way, verbally, mentally, our intention, which is very important in this process, begins to what? Free it up. All right. Let's imagine that what I'm doing now is I'm working on a fear, and I have fear of relationship. Let's use that as an example. I'm going to tap on this, which is the karate chop, and I'm going to go through this 3 times on this and listen to what I'm saying, and again, adapt whatever it is that you're working on in the same way. Even though I have a fear of relationships, I love and accept myself completely. Very important statement. In other words, I'm saying, even though I have this fear, I'm not going to negate myself. I'm not going to look down on myself. I'm not going to make myself a shithead, and so on, right? You get the idea, right? Second time, right? Because I said I'm going through it 3 times. Even though I have a fear of getting involved with a lady and being in a relationship, I love and accept myself anyway. Even though I have a fear of relationships and what could happen to me, I love and accept myself completely. Right? So 3 times, right? Now I'm going to go to this point right over here, and if you look at the chart up here, it shows you the points. I'm not going to be using exactly the ones, I'm going to mostly use what you see, but we'll do some others also. Even though I have this fear of relationships. Now notice I've shortened what I'm saying. Right? I have a fear of relationships. I have a fear of intimacy. I have a fear of being with a woman. I have a fear of getting involved. I'm letting go of that fear. I no longer need that fear. I no longer want that fear. So I'm going what? I went through it. I went to here, to here, to here, to here, to here, to the collarbone, and then right underneath the arm, okay? Right on, as it shows right there on the chart. And then I'm going back and I'm starting all over again. So I'm going to go through that one, what? Twice. We started 3 times here, and then I'm going twice here. Even though I have this fear, I'm letting go. I'm letting go of this fear. I'm safe and secure in the power of the present. I'm safe and secure in the pool of my being. I'm safe and secure in being with a woman. I'm safe and secure within myself. I'm safe and secure now. I'm free of the past. I like that one, that last statement that I just made. I am free of the past. Because what we do, oftentimes a person gets in a, bad relationship, as we might say. It was a horrible relationship. Maybe there was a lot of fighting and bickering and, not much love and so on. You get the idea. Or maybe there was could have even been brutal with some people. And sometimes now the woman says, I hate men, I want nothing to do with men. Or the man says, no more women for me, and so on it goes. So oftentimes we use our experience to what? Create our present reality. In other words, we're literally carrying the past with us. I am free of the past. All right, now I'm going to go through this again, because in the process, while you're doing this, you want to be aware of little feelings that come up. An idea might come up, and you might think, oh yeah, I get that. And you want to begin to incorporate it into this process. Even though I had many women reject me as a child, I love and accept myself completely. Even though, as a child, my grandmother was often very degrading in my life, I love and accept myself anyway. Even though I experienced some degrading women in my life as a child, I love and accept myself anyway. I felt degraded as a child. These feelings made me afraid of women. I'm now afraid of women because of these feelings. These feelings are making me afraid of women. Those childhood experiences made me afraid of women. I'm releasing and letting go. I don't need this anymore. This is the past. I'm releasing and letting go. I'm free now to have relationships with women. I'm free to get into a relationship. I'm free to be who I am. Notice I'm tapping on the fingers. That's another one. You can tap on the outside of the finger here, the outside here, the outside here. You can skip this one, tap there, or you can simply go back through as we did the first time. I'm free of the past. I'm free now to have loving relationships. I'm free to be in a relationship. I no longer need to be afraid of myself. I no longer need to be afraid of women. I'm safe and secure within myself. I'm safe and secure within the pool of my being. I'm safe and secure within myself, and so forth. All right? Now, how many times do you go through this process? I have no idea. You might spend 10, 15 minutes just going from one feeling to another, one sense to another, one intuitive sense of what you need to work on to another. You might only go through it a couple of times. You may work on it for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. Every day, not necessarily. But oftentimes, if you feel yourself, for instance, let me give you a quick story. I was traveling with a friend of mine, and we'd gone out to Telluride. And we were on the 3rd floor of this building, and she walked out to the veranda, so to speak, and she looked over, and she started to get sick. And I said, "Ooh, what's going on?" And she said, "Oh, I'm afraid of heights." She said, "When I get into a high place like that," she said, "I feel myself getting sick to my stomach." I said, "Come on." And I did this process, and I'm going to go through it with you right here so you can see another way of doing it. And I had her do this, and I did it along with her. When I'm teaching someone, and I've done this, multitudes of times on a one-to-one basis with people. But anyway, even though I'm afraid of height, I love and accept myself completely. Even though I have a fear of height when I'm in a high place, I love and accept myself anyway. Even though when I get on a high place, I get sick to my stomach, I love and accept myself completely. Fear of height, fear of high places, fear I might fall off, fear that something terrible could happen, fear that I could die, fear of falling off, fear of height. I have this fear of height. I'm letting go of this fear of height. I no longer need this fear of height. I no longer want this fear of height. I can now see myself in a high place. I can now walk to a high place. I can now be in a high place, and so on. So we went through it twice like that, and we went through it again. We went through it a 3rd time. After the 3rd time, she was able to walk out to the balcony and look over without getting those sick feelings. And this happened 2 or 3 years ago. She is still able to do that, by the way. She can now deal with height where before she could not. All right, is there other things that you can do? Because when I'm working on a very powerful issue, like the one that maybe the first one that we got into, relationships or money or whatever the case may be, I'm going to back it up with other things. Sometimes I don't even use EFT because all the ones that I'm going to mention here are just as powerful. Self-hypnosis is incredibly powerful. In my book, for instance, I get into self-hypnosis, but mostly we call it the alpha state of consciousness, where I show you and give you literally methods of how you can, through words, through imagination, literally, okay, not figuratively, but literally reprogram those areas of your life so that you get different outcomes. Creative visualization is a tremendous process. One of the most powerful in the world. Think of how powerful your imagination is when you go to the movies and they play the music and they get into the drama, they get into the fight or the war or the romance, and all of these feelings come up. When you use that in such a way to bring those feelings into you of the change that you're wanting to make through visualization, That is incredibly powerful. And if you'll use music along with it, it's even more powerful. In other words, you're going to take and use music. What kind of music? Come on, what kind? Just playing. The kind that you like, the kind that moves you, the kind that motivates you. And while you're in that state of meditation, you are seeing, imagining, feeling yourself in those changes. In other words, you're not thinking about making the change. You're already seeing them come about. The dream process is one of the most powerful. I don't have the time right now in the sense of on this video to get into that in detail. I do have a video that touches on the dream state. My book, though, goes into it in detail. In fact, my book gets into every one of these things in detail. So if you have some interest in bringing more into your life in that way, other than what we've done here with the EFT, you can go to my website, which is Cool Zen Healing, and watch that video if you choose to, and it will get into detail of what this book covers. It is 38 years of my experience with working with people all over the world to help them to bring positive transformations into their life. All right, thanks for being with me. I really appreciate it. Oh, by the way, please leave a comment, negative or positive. It helps us. It helps me to bring better videos and better information. Thanks again for being with me. Dino Delano.